My guest, Maryann Petri, host of Slam the Gavel and author. Today we will be talking about exactly how to go pro se. That's represent yourself, especially we're focusing on family court. But I would like to start out this conversation with this, Maryann. In your opinion, why are protective parents mislabeled as high conflict?
They're mislabeled as high conflict because they use that as an excuse to keep the case going longer. So if they label two individuals as high conflict, they're disregarding the fact that one of them is a personality disorder, constantly dragging the other party into the courtroom every other week.
Well, I took forensic tests and I kept dragging my second footstool into court every chance I got. It wasn't every it was week, but it was every couple of years. And I was labeled. I think they tried to say that I was harassing my second footstool through family court.
I was labeled as a vexatious litigant, and we were the ones being pulled into court. So we weren't filing anything. It's the other party that kept filing it, but what they do is they deflect. They start calling the pro se litigant, or if they have an attorney, they start calling them vexatious and litigious. And that's how they deflect to disrupt and distract the judge.
I know the opposing attorney in my case was saying that the case had no basis and it was just frivolous. That's the word, frivolous, a frivolous case. That's the legal term that they use. But
Mhm.
hey, nothing is frivolous when you're messing with somebody's kid and you're trying to destroy their livelihood. There's nothing frivolous about that.
Exactly.
Maryann, you and I both found out how unjust the family court system is. How and when did you decide to represent yourself and give me a few pointers of how you accomplished that? And I'm going to input some information as to how I accomplished it in my state of South Carolina where I live.
I was continuously swiping charge cards. When I got up to 40 to 45,000, then I put my foot down and I said, if that attorney can do it, I'm sure I can figure this out. So I just went into that mode. It was like automatically like a duck getting into water. I wasn't afraid. I just did it. I put in my entry of appearance and off I went. And they did not like it one bit. And what parents have to realize is when you take on this pro se litigant representation of yourself in this arena, in this coliseum, they are not going to like you one bit because they know, and there's a law, and I believe it's completely across all 50 states, that they cannot treat you and hold you to what an attorney knows. In fact, a federal court judge told me that. He says, I know you're not a lawyer, and we're not going to treat you like that because you don't have a law degree. So that showed me that is true.
Well, it wasn't true in my case, Maryann, because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they held me at the same standard
Yeah.
as an attorney in the South Carolina Family Court system and also the South Carolina Court of Appeals. In both of those courts, they were telling me that you didn't do this or you should have done that, after the fact. There was no one there to guide me. So, listeners, if you would like to be a pro se litigant, pay attention to this important information. We're going to try to help guide you so your life will not be destroyed. We're not practicing law. We're telling you about our stories and how we did it. But anyway, when I decided with my fourth attorney that I feel like was just standing beside me, not really saying anything and acting like they didn't know what was going on, I advised them when we left out of court that I didn't need the help. There was no help. Money was flowing out of my 401k, but I wasn't getting any help. So I left court that day and I made up in my mind. I said, prayed. I said, God, there has to be a way to do this. I have been silenced for years and the truth has to come forth. That's how I felt. So I left court. I emailed that attorney, dismissed that attorney, and had no idea about what I was going to do. I started doing research on the computer. I started emailing and calling around. And I remember in the first temporary hearing, they got me on a default judgment because I did not have an attorney. After I figured that out from the first time, I said, years later, I've gotten back in court. They won't get me on a default judgment this time. So I got onto the computer and started doing some research, and I knew that the documentation that you have to present in our family court, it has to be in a certain format.
Mm-hmm.
And I was not capable of putting those documents in that format. But God allowed me to contact someone on the other side of the country. And I got onto the phone and I had a conversation with them, told them what was happening, and they agreed to help me. And I learned how to file papers from there. I would send my information to them, scan it. They would put the information in the legal format with the lines and everything on the paper, and they would send it to me. And I had to learn how to file legal documents in the family court system. That's what happened in my case. And it was not easy because you have to have certain things attached to the filings and they have to be in certain order. But I became an expert after doing it a couple of times.
Well, when I was functioning as a pro se, I knew by looking at the opposing attorney's paperwork, if that's how he was filing it and his layout was basically, and then I looked at my previous attorney and their layout and what they were doing. That was my template. And then, of course, you have to look up your own case law. Never trust AI, because a lawyer got in trouble for trusting AI with the
Yeah.
wrong case law. So, it'll give you case law, but you better look it up and make sure it is what it is. And and I'll be honest with you, the paperwork is nasty and it's not a fun experience. And however, I remember holding a motion that I had just written and I was so happy. I couldn't wait to file it. And then my heart attack happened out of nowhere. It started on my right side of my chest and it went over to the left side of my chest. I'm going, what is that? And so I'm like, I just took 3 baby aspirin and I was just, like making copies and it's like, it's still there, And I called my husband and he said, just call an ambulance. I said, but it can't be anything major. Little did I know, but I will say going pro se has been the best experience that I've ever had because I know this sounds horrible, but I really like tormenting the opposing attorney.
Well, Maryann, I didn't have a template to go by because each attorney that I had, I never really saw any paperwork. I really didn't get a lot of paperwork. In my case, I had to go all the way back to the beginning from scratch. And that it was agonizing, I must say. But as I've said in the past, if you're desperate enough, you will do what you need to do.
Exactly. That's very true. And, filing the paperwork and the stress of all that, even though what it cost me, it was just a big mess, but it's like you would win a battle but lose the war. It was like 2 steps forward, 4 steps back. Then put it this way, whether you're a pro se or not, there's still no winning in
Yeah.
family court because even if you were a highly successful pro se litigant, your ex and the opposing attorney, they are both, we'll say, abusers. They're child psychological abusers because they will help work on the kids to turn the
Okay,
kids
well,
against you. And so was my opposing attorney encouraging this behavior. You couldn't stop it.
Well, when I was in court, I felt like I wasn't the one that had the emergency C-section. I was wondering if the attorneys or the judge had given birth because I had no rights. That's
Right.
the way I felt.
Yeah, you're up there and you are treated like garbage. And the one thing about being a pro se litigant is they cannot put you on the witness stand, at least in the state of Pennsylvania. So that was a good thing. But I had a lot to go on as far as when I was with an attorney, I was always telling her to put me on the witness stand, and she said, "Go right ahead, go right," and then she would, we would work together. But the problem with that, also with that judge and a female attorney, is that he was, not only was he biased because he was BFFs with the opposing attorney, but he did not like her. Probably, I'm going to say this, no one's going to like it, but he was chauvinistic towards her, would not answer her questions. When she would ask the judge a question, he would yell at her, and she would say, "We've done everything we could possibly do. What more can we do? What are your reasons that you will not go back to 50-50?" And he yelled at her. He yelled at her and said, "I have my reasons." And she said, "Well, what are your reasons?" And he yelled louder, "I have my reasons." I'm like, he's crazy, and you're a woman, and this is not going to work. So I'm going to have to do this myself.
That's pretty bad. It's like I didn't have a voice for a long time, but thank God that I do have a voice now, and I'm really in hopes of us educating other people so they can know exactly what's happening in family court before you even get there.
And the thing is, parents hopefully will avoid, if they're smart, hopefully they'll avoid family court, but you can't do that if you're dealing with a personality disorder that creates the high conflict scene. So what am I trying to say? I'm having my brain is like,
Just be aware. Parents need to be aware of the process before you go into family court because
mhm,
a lot of the documents and everything, they are time sensitive. You have to move fast
fast.
in family court
You have to
because
know.
those people, those actors in that courtroom, they will move so fast it will make your head spin off. The deadline will
Right.
be before you know it if you go and procrastinate. That's how it's
Definitely.
set up.
Right. Do not procrastinate. If they tell you you've got 15 days to respond, do it in 3. That's what I always
That's
did to
right.
really upset everybody, because I was on the ball and I did it way before the opposing attorney did it. And I know this sounds really, but I enjoyed arguing against him because he really amused me. And he amused me. The way he would argue is all drama. Like I told you, it's theater in there, and he's raising his hands up like, she's doing this, filing that. So I thought, well, if he can do that and act like Evita Peron, I'm gonna do the same thing and see if it works for me.
I
So I was like, "Your
experienced
Honor,
I
he's
ex
requesting that I have all my physicians here within 24 hours, Your Honor. How can this possibly be? If he wants my physicians in here within 24 hours, then he has to subpoena them, not me." Oh, silence. And then he was like watching me move my arms around in time. And then he just started arguing with his hands to his sides.
I
He never
experienced
did
a
that
lot of
again.
I
But he
experienced
caught
some
on.
I
Took him a
experienced
while.
some of the unprofessional behavior from the opposing attorney in the courtroom also, but I believe had we tried that, we probably would have been arrested that day in court if we would have initiated something like that.
Right, right. But they can get away with it, but I thought, "Well, if it's working for him, why can't I try and see what happens?"
I didn't do that. I didn't do it because she was there. My opposing attorney was stomping and talking loud and everything. I did not do that because I know that there was a target on my back. They were waiting for me to make one wrong move and I would have
Mhm.
been arrested. So I didn't do it.
With this male attorney, maybe it's different with a nasty female attorney. I think the females are nastier than the males.
Yeah.
That's my assumption. I'm only assuming that only because I just had this low budget. He's a DUI attorney in 1 minute, then he's a criminal attorney the next minute, and then he's a marital law attorney the next minute. So I guess he can't make
Wow.
up his mind. But the thing is to just remain calm and let them just say whatever they're gonna say, and then wait your turn, and then you get to talk, and then, you have to put them
Yeah,
in their
because
place.
the court is already upset with you because you are a pro se litigant.
Right.
So, I believe any opportunity they have
Mhm.
to get you with a contempt of court order or whatever, it's a good possibility that that may happen. So you have to just
Mhm.
remain professional and calm.
Right. The judge threatened me 4 times with, "Do you wanna go to jail?" He said to me, "You're annoying me. Do you wanna end up in jail?" And I just looked at him like, "I dare you."
You know what? They say that because they don't want the truth
Right,
to be told. That is the
right.
way they threaten you. They want the false narrative that they created.
Mhm,
And they get nervous, they start panicking because they know what they have done, I believe.
mhm.
This is strategic moves that they make. They
Definitely.
bet on us not knowing. They
Mhm,
bet on the audience not knowing. They
mhm.
know what they're doing.
It's all theater.